Texas cloud seeding CEO funded by Peter Thiel connected to Palantir. The story's going to get weirder, but let's get the background. Meet Augustus Dorico, a 25-year-old tech bro and Thiel fellow who founded the weather modification startup Rainmaker. According to publicly available info, Dorico's company was reportedly cloud seeding over parts of Texas just 2 days before historic flooding hit those same regions. He received $100,000 through Peter Thiel's fellowship, the same Thiel who co-founded Palantir, a surveillance and defense tech giant tracking everything from troop movements to civilian behavior. Let that sink in. Why is a Palantir-connected billionaire funding private weather experiments in Texas? Why is a 25-year-old with no public oversight allowed to modify the sky? They called it stewarding the natural world. Texas got biblical flooding instead. This isn't a theory. It's documented, privately funded, and totally unregulated. No vote, no consent, no accountability, just Thiel money, weather manipulation, and a flooded state left asking questions. Now, obviously this is just a post. Just because it has views and it's not, community noted doesn't mean it's, not true. Now, Grok does say, yes, he did and was funded by Peter Thiel, but it got weirder today. As I was perusing through the internet, I saw a report come up from the mainstream media. And of course, the mainstream media reporting on something could mean either something's less credible or more credible. I'll let you decide what you think. However, in a quite interesting story, I saw this come up after these, catastrophic floods. If I can get in here real fast. Check this story. This is from NBC. Tell me what you think.
Times you might have seen posts or videos connecting cloud seeding to what is happening in Texas. And then earlier tonight, the CEO of a weather modification company confirmed that planes in Texas did release silver iode into the atmosphere 2 days before the floods. But he also explained why he says scientifically it does not mean that the two events are connected. Watch this.
We're talking about like sub-centimeter amounts of precipitation, be it in snow or rain from every event, which in aggregate can mean hundreds of acre feet, which is very consequential for farmers and ecosystems, but cannot come close to causing flooding unto itself.
And NBC News climate reporter Chase Kane joins us now. Chase, any conspiracy always starts with like a thread of truth here. Can you explain the science? Like, what is cloud seeding, first off, and how is it being used in Texas?
Yeah, so cloud seeding is really this idea for farmers of like, hey, there's some moisture up there in the clouds. Is there a way that we can get it out of the clouds down here to the surface to help farmers? Because water vapor that's in the air needs something to grab onto, which is often like smaller than the tip of a pen. So you're thinking like pollens, particles of pollen or dust or even air pollution. So you see this graphic here. Basically what they do is they fly planes up there to give the water vapor something to grab onto. So it's a combination of silver iodide and salt, actually. And so the water vapor forms around that. Eventually it gets heavy enough and then falls to the surface of rain. So when that happens, we're talking really small amounts of rain. In fact, scientists have been debating for decades whether or not this is actually very effective to do. So even when it does work, Gotti, we're not talking about a lot of rain, certainly not the amount of rain that they saw in Texas last week.
And the timing of it, 2 days before, I mean, again, anybody online that seems to be an expert these days would say, well, no, this is what, started the flood or possibly like supercharged the soil so it was hydrophobic. Like, take us through the timeline here.
Yeah, that's a really important point, Gotti, because this cloud seeding, it works within like 15 minutes, half an hour, maybe an hour, and then that's it. So that was done 2 days before. So the CEO is saying this. Other scientific research establishes that cloud seeding isn't going to trigger something like this, certainly not 2 days after they were doing it. They were only up in the air cloud seeding for about 20 minutes because, again, it's targeted to a pretty small area.
Listen. Some people say 20 minutes is a really long time. Like some people say, oh, has to be 40 minutes of cloud seeding. You got to seed the cloud for 50 minutes. I'd say, man, if I was a cloud and I was getting seeded for 20 minutes, I'd think that was a good, that's a really long time to get seeded. And like, you shouldn't make fun of it. You shouldn't mock it. It should be something you're appreciative of. But, but I would never be a cloud and never get seeded. I'd probably be more the cloud seeder. You know what I mean? But I thought one of the best parts about this was, it was like, so you're telling me that after all this gaslighting from the left and the right, let's get the facts down. The Weather Service knew about a storm coming. The National Weather Service had more staff on duty. They had 5 instead of 2. There was proper warnings that went out, but yet there was so much water in such little time, it was confusing and no one could have prepared for it and they couldn't have helped anyone. And it turns out in the same area, there was cloud seeding that was done just before, which does cause torrential downpours. And we remember in Dubai this happened. Do you remember in Dubai? They did cloud seeding and flooded Dubai last year. I think that was last year.
It was 2 years ago.
And California.
They try to debate it and say that it wasn't because of the cloud seeding like we're running into now. But a lot of people say that that's why you had those extreme flooding in Dubai.
Yeah. So, okay. So, yeah.
I was actually just looking it up again. Just
okay. So you remember that. Yeah. So that was pretty serious. And then you find out that there's cloud seeding in an unexplainable flood. And I'm not into the whole blame climate change, blame, weather control. But the fact that the media comes out and says, look, I just want to tell you guys something. It's going to seem weird because Peter Thiel, who's contracted out with Palantir and working with Trump, even though he was just seeding the clouds to rain above this area in Texas, they're not really related because even though it's like you just ran out of ideas to say, just like, even though, you know what? Never mind. It's definitely connected. I would like to say, as someone who's never made a claim about weather control that wasn't accurate, we know the United States did do cloud seeding in a weaponized warfare with China during Trump's last admin. That was the whole reason why that China, ended up submitting to Trump's trade war back in his first administration was because we sent planes, cloud seeded over their fields, caused flooding, and we wiped out a bunch of their crops. Yeah, that was like the whole CIA thing that happened. And then we cloud seeded them. And then they had floods, and then they had to buy all of our produce. So we said, you're gonna. Trump said one way or another, you're going to submit. Yeah. And they went, what do you mean? And then the next week there was catastrophic floods that wiped out all of their crops, and they had to buy from us. And then that's when it created a tension. They started investing in their own military, and it started this whole South China Sea, fiasco. So that happened. We do know they make clouds. We do know that there are things that go on. We do know that cloud seeding caused the flooding in Dubai. And now it's like, okay, maybe Maui was a government operation. I'm just saying,